Welcome back to the Theology of the Buddy podcast, episode 35. In today's podcast, Brooke interviews David Rummelhoff, the founder of Peter's Square, an online marketplace for Catholic makers. The two of them discuss the importance of supporting Catholic businesses, entrepreneurship as a Catholic, the theology of labor, and the community that can be found in the Catholic business world. We hope you enjoy.
All right, and welcome to the Theology of the Buddy podcast. The team has made a pretty interesting decision to allow me to take the reins on this interview. And today's interviewee is someone that's you've probably not necessarily picked up on, but has been doing so much in terms of the online Catholic marketplace. I'd like to introduce everybody to David Rummelhoff. Am I pronouncing that right?
It's Rummelhoff. Yeah.
Rummelhoff. Perfect. Yay. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I first was introduced to you when I was looking for a marketplace to sell some of my artwork, and I stumbled upon Peter's Square at a perfect time. And can we hear a little bit about yourself, how you decided to start up Peter's Square and some of your other projects too, because you have a lot going on.
Yeah. I have too many irons in the fire, I think. Well, I'm a convert of sorts. I say that because I came into the church back in Easter 2008, and it was right before the Easter Vigil that I had a conversation with my grandmother and found out for the very first time, learned that I had been baptized in the Catholic Church.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a revert of sorts.
Yeah.
Grew up evangelical though, and then came to the church in 2008. And the church has so many rich traditions and very rich intellectual traditions, and a lot of it, I think that kind of gets overlooked because it doesn't necessarily fit very neatly into the nest of theology. Is some of the stuff related to how we relate to each other in the church, and so those two big principles of subsidiarity and solidarity were things that when I entered the church I learned of and made me love the church even more for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started Peter's Square, it was sort of in response to that. It was, I wanted to support, I wanted myself to purchase from Catholic vendors. I had discovered over time that there were quite a few Catholic vendors, most of them with shops set up on Etsy, creating all manner of things, religious and not. And it occurred to me that, Etsy's not the greatest platform in some ways, and there was definitely no organization geared towards Catholics. So you didn't have like a Catholic community on Etsy that you could just go to like that section.
Oh, absolutely.
And so in the interest of sort of that solidarity concept, I thought it would be great to have a marketplace that was just for Catholic vendors, and that would really appeal to customers as well, that they could have a central location to find that. So that was sort of the genesis of it. I wanted to create that space and have that mutual support for each other.
Mm-hmm. And that's honestly one of the biggest topics that I wanted to bring up with you, was just that the ability to support Catholic businesses in an environment where Catholics can feel like there's a sense of belonging. I don't want to say a safety net, but a sense of security.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was within the past year or so, there was like a recirculation of either a recent issue or an older issue where, consecrated hosts were being sold on Etsy. And
right.
This was long after I had, joined Peter's Square. But I remember even when I was looking at Etsy, there's a lot of blasphemous artwork. There's a lot of dangerous, for lack of a better term, a lot of blasphemous and anti-Catholic things being created on there, being sold on there. And I really didn't want to give Etsy my business, essentially. Like, you like to think
right.
They're giving you the ability to have your business, but they're making money off of you too. And if there are people making
right.
money off of selling, the body of Christ on there, to who knows who to do who knows what, that's not good.
No, of course. Yeah. And it is that give and take. There's, you have that relationship with, anyone you do business with. Grocery store, but yeah, if we can step aside, if we can sort of skirt doing that, then it's nice to be able to do that. It's nice to have another option and to avoid cooperating with that contingent as much as possible.
Oh, absolutely. You mentioned being able for customers to find that marketplace, essentially, to find those other Catholic businesses. The market, in most stores that you can visit in real life are often saturated with a lot of, for lack of a better term, kitschy gift items, a lot of reprints of old artwork that maybe are a little bit dated, that probably don't appeal to, people that are closer to our age. And Peter Square has kind of made it possible for people to go to that one Catholic, I don't want to say store, but, lots of stores where they can peruse items that are made by people like in the now. They're not being mass produced things. They're things that people are putting their time, talent, and blood, sweat, and tears for some of it to create artwork or items or what have you that are different. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is why Etsy as a handmade marketplace, as it really originated, became so popular and now is, ubiquitous. People know the name because we all value that. Yeah. We all value that, the craftsmanship that goes into things. There's a place for mass produced. I don't want stereo speakers that are handmade by someone.
No.
But when it comes to those very tangible things that you want to give as gifts, and those things that you want to cherish for a long time, getting those from people individuals for whom that's their craft, that's their life. They are artisans making something. That's great. And what I love about it too is, again, that rich tradition that the church has of supporting artists. And I use the term broadly here because, there's an art involved in everything that people are hand making, that craftsmanship. But the church has this long tradition of being the patron, and we as individual members of the church, by buying from one another, we act as patrons, and we support that beauty, and I think it's such a fantastic thing. I love seeing people find success in that, and for myself, I work from home because I'm a stay-at-home parent, and I get to have my craft is technical, right? I'm not hand making icons or something, but my work that I do with Peter Square, I get to be home, and the ability for so many people to do that, to work from home so that they can support their family and be with their family too. I value that just so much, being in that position.
I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. There's a big thing in people trying to support local. People want to do, supporting your neighbor, buying from your neighbor, doing all these other things that, basically the whole mentality of like from farm to home, but instead it's from one Catholic to another Catholic. And, I think that's really important in terms of how we're able to build that sense of community, not just in, where we're going to, mass, or, what youth group our kids are going to, or what camp our kids are going to, but, we're able to support each other too financially, in a sense, which can be pretty tough as a Catholic, especially somebody with a Catholic business. And I feel that before I found Peter Square, I felt really intimidated to put myself out there because, where are they going to go? And, that being said, there is something to be discussed with Catholic entrepreneurship as its own kind of adventure. Would you say that being a Catholic and a businessman has its own challenges or has presented various different obstacles?
Yeah. I think that the challenge, okay, so you, collecting my thoughts here, that idea of wanting to support local and support one another on that level, but more directly, that, again, it's one of those things where we don't, even when we're familiar with the idea of subsidiarity, we tend to think of it in terms of administration.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, we have a problem, we go first to our pastor, not straight to the bishop, and certainly not to Rome with an issue. But it has a dimension that applies to just the more mundane things of life. And that is that we are better off. We are helping one another better. And it's solidarity and subsidiarity when we go directly to the maker. When we go at least more directly to someone for that product, for what they can do, and we support each other in that way. It's really both subsidiarity and solidarity. And I think one of the challenges that I've had is maintaining that, and that being very central, because with Peter's Square, it's not a venture that has mass appeal beyond the church. It's not something that I anticipate swarms of non-Catholics would come to.
Right.
People certainly do who aren't Catholic, but for shopping purposes. But we have sort of a narrower focus when we are trying to support one another and sort of in a sense market to one another. We've narrowed our playing field a bit, and that's a challenge always. Especially in the application of Peter's Square, that's challenging too, because in the sense that we've got vendors makers who are creating things that aren't strictly religious items, which is good, but because their creations are items that have broader appeal, that might be marketed to a broader audience, sometimes we have the challenge of getting them to, I don't want to say commit, but getting them on board with Peter's Square because of that aspect, because they get this idea that, well, it's a smaller marketplace. It is more niche in a sense. I think all those limiting factors are what make Catholic entrepreneurship a bit harder.
Right.
At least in my experience.
You're always going to be in the Catholic marketplace, you're going to be appealing to mostly Catholics. And it does have its sense of challenges. Like as a Catholic artist, if I go to, a craft show or something, which I haven't done yet because I'm a Catholic artist, the chances of me stumbling upon, a bunch of Catholics that are shopping for my particular product is mostly pretty limited unless I'm selling at like a church bazaar or a church event or something like that. You're more tempted to be a little bit more reserved in what you're showcasing, because you're going to try and appeal to the audience or the people that are going to be passing through. It can be tough. Yeah. Yeah. Like if somebody asks what kind of artwork I do and I say, oh, well, I draw the saints. Most of the time they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you are in a visual art, and like a heavily visual art. And
absolutely. Yeah.
That's always something difficult when people are asking for a few words to describe it. Well, that's never going to give you a great idea. But see, in your case, and anyone who's doing such a visual thing, I think the exposure is good, even if the sales aren't.
Absolutely.
Because this is one of the things that I think there's a resurgence of this appreciation among the members of the church for the beautiful. It kind of got lost. Just thinking about, I'm in Chicago now, for today. And I told you this, that, we have some of the most beautiful churches in the country, but we've got so many that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s that are less than beautiful. Yeah. And
just bad architecture. Yeah.
Right. But, people of all sorts, especially here in Chicago, they participate. They go on these architectural tours, visiting these churches. They don't visit the ones that were built in the 50s and 60s that we think are atrocious. Mm-hmm. They go visit those absolutely gorgeous ones, and it's because people are attracted to beauty, and mm-hmm. well, it's because people have, as even fallen, all of us, we still have a desire for the truth, a desire for beauty, a desire mm-hmm. for what is good, for the transcendentals, for what God is himself, right? Yeah. And so every beautiful thing you create is a participation in the beauty of God. It's mm-hmm. participation in God himself. And bringing that to people and having people see that beautiful thing, even if it wasn't the saints, mm-hmm. is still a testament to God's goodness, mm-hmm. And to the importance that he has in your life. And so I think spreading that beauty is, I don't like throwing it out there as an evangelical tool. It's almost like it is evangelical by its nature.
Yeah. It's where we find our purpose, right? Like in mm-hmm. giving glory to God, in doing that with our work. If our work yes. doesn't give, or isn't rooted in trying to give glory to God, then I don't want to say it's purposeless, but it's very much more worldly centered. And yeah, but by making your craft or making your job or making, even your home family life, your work that is to give glory to God, then that's where it finds its value. It's not even in the price tag or if you right. sell something or not. It's in saying, this is who I am, and this is what I make. But when you look at what I make, I want you to see the Creator, or I want you to ponder on, that love of God, the love of Christ, the love of the church. Yeah, it definitely does give us a sense of purpose when we do those things. And and recall truth, goodness, and beauty, and always think about that as kind of the start of a project or business, whatnot.
Yeah. And that's, fortunately, one of those challenges that I think a lot of Catholic entrepreneurs have is moral issues mm-hmm. and who they give business to, who they participate with. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I've, in this endeavor, that's not really an issue. It's very targeted towards, well, it's limited to Catholic vendors. The items themselves can be virtually anything, but so I haven't run into that, but I see that, especially those Catholic groups on Facebook, where very often people are doing creative works and they throw out a question about, the morality of participating, doing things this way, participating with these people who are doing, and that's another challenge. And I'm keenly aware of that because I have a master's degree in dogmatic theology, and I had one of the best moral theologian teachers.
Where did you go?
Well, my master's was done online via Holy Apostles College and Seminary in Cromwell, Connecticut. I cannot recommend their program highly enough because one of the great benefits of their program and doing distance learning for theology is it isn't a field that is greatly benefited, certainly benefited, but not greatly benefited by in-person contact. Mm-hmm. There's, I feel like my experience was diminished because I had to type everything out, right? Because all of my conversations with my peers and my teachers were online. Not at all. But because it's distance learning, they have managed to recruit so many excellent teachers. My moral theology teacher was Father Brian Milady, who I'm sure a lot of people would recognize that name. He's on EWTN quite often. Dominican priest, fantastic guy.
I'd probably recognize the face. It's been a while.
But they have such an excellent faculty, because the faculty are distance as well. They don't have to be at the college in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I am keenly aware of those issues. And I appreciate that so many people, I think, of our generation are trying to be faithful and trying to navigate those sometimes, murky waters with some of these issues. the very fact that they're not just dismissing issues and that they're trying to deal with them truly, rationally, and be faithful to church gives me hope, because we make mistakes. We got to try, and people are trying. I think that's one of those things too that I really appreciate about Peter Square and the community is there's so many people there they care about their faith. Mm-hmm. And that I think, I don't want to say bolsters, them. It gives them sort of a motivation, this community works together.
They're definitely not just looking to make, a couple bucks. They want to make sure that, there's a lot of heart in the products that are made on Peter Square. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are, working really, really hard to make sure what they're making and who they're making it for is solid,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. You mentioned that you're able to do a lot of this work from home. And sometimes people with startups of various kinds struggle to find a sense of balance between home life and work life. And often because they are so integrated and revolve around each other. Do you have any advice for people that are struggling to find that happy medium, or perhaps they're afraid to take the leap of entrepreneurship because it would be done from home and because of the marketplace?
I have found that very much depends on the task. So there are particular tasks, within what I'm doing. There are particular tasks that I can tackle or give my attention to while my attention is divided. So in the presence of multiple children, there are other tasks that are, they just require too much focus that I really shouldn't have my attention divided. And when I make the mistake of attempting to do that, attempting to tackle a task with the kids awake and around and busy and interrupting, that it generates too much frustration. And that's where I think they are intertwined, right? That when you do this, they're very much integrated, your home life and the work. But a lot of creating the balance comes down to the manner in which you segregate them. I'm sure for some people and with some jobs, you can do it more than others. You rarely have those tasks that you can't be interrupted in. But ultimately, I think that's where I found a peaceful place. I'll do a lot of my work after the kids go to bed, or I'll do it while they're at school. Mm-hmm. And the other side to that is I've made the mistake at times of getting too wrapped up in something, and then in the evening when the kids are down, I think, and I kind of wasted that time. Even if I got something accomplished with my work, that would have been better spent with the kids. That would have been better spent being more attentive to them.
And
so, that balance is, that balance is tough, but, it requires ultimately, I think it requires some discipline to figure out and to commit to doing that. You have to find what works, but I think it can work for virtually anybody. There's a lot of benefits to being at home doing the work, and a lot of time that you aren't spending in a car commuting or something. So I encourage people to try it. It's one of the nice things. You try these things out, and you generally don't have to invest a ton of money or anything. If you want to try something, you can try it and let it grow organically. I think it's not foolish to dive right in, but it's foolish to sort of overextend yourself, to think, if I'm going to make this work, I need to just make this my all for right now. Our priorities have to be the home life. Mm-hmm. There's an excellent quote from C.S. Lewis. It's way too long that I would never even remember it, but some of us may have heard it. It came from a letter he wrote to a mother, and he was responding to her letter and said, your work, what you do as a housewife, and so this is just stay-at-home parent, right? What you do as a stay-at-home parent is ultimately the reason for all other jobs. That home life, that that's the core. And if it wasn't for that, there would be no purpose in manufacturing trains or farming. It's the whole spectrum. So that home life needs to remain central, and you got to see what you're doing. Going back to what you said about purpose, if you want to do this, it needs to be ordered ultimately toward the good of your family. Mm-hmm. You can do that. If you can be comfortable with that, then do it.
Mm-hmm. And the kids do definitely pick up on that. And there are, for lack of a cheesiness, there are seasons in life that come in the family that also come with the businesses. We have 2 kids. Our youngest is 15 months and our oldest is, she turned 4 this past summer. So it's busy. I can't just put, when it was just Evie, I could just put her down for a nap and then I could do all my work kind of in the middle, or during her naps. And there was only one kid to worry about, for lack of a better word. But now there are 2. There are 2 schedules. There are different needs for each kid. And it definitely can be a bit of a struggle to balance everything. And the hardest thing is sometimes knowing when, Visual Litany has to take a step back. Is it really worth me working on this piece for an hour to get just a little bit done? Or is it really worth me pulling my hair out to try and get a product shipped off as fast as possible and, just throw on TV for the kids for, I don't know, a while. and sometimes that does happen. Sometimes we need the break. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
But if your business is hurting your family, or if where you're working is hurting you and makes you incapable of giving your all to your family, it's time to reevaluate. The kids notice that, and the kids will see that as they grow up. They might not see it now, but they will see it later when they're 20 years old and they realize, wow, my parents did, all this business stuff and took care of us. And also I remember watching them, create all these pieces, whether it's, jewelry or rosaries. There's so many rosary makers, and it's just phenomenal what some people have been able to do and create, in addition to balancing their family life or making it part of their family life. I think there is something about keeping, families closer to home that is so much more natural than everybody leaving.
Right.
Yeah. I want to say it's kind of a Benedictine option type of revival that seems to be coming back. A lot of Catholics wish they could be keeping things home. Even from, growing their own food to, even livestock. I've seen a lot more people, become more interested in doing that just so they could focus on the family again. And maybe it's just something that's kind of changed because of society in general, that people are leaving home more. And that isn't always necessarily a bad thing. And it definitely can be a mandatory thing if, you got to put food on the table or whatnot. But there is something to be said about home businesses, especially as Catholics.
Yeah. There is an excellent prayer. I should have memorized it by now, but I haven't. I think it was written by St. Pius XII. At least that's who it's attributed to. And it's a prayer to St. Joseph. And it's about, the prayer is really, asking, how do I put it? It's about laboring. That's what it's about. And it's about the dignity of labor, the need for it, and the value in it. And I being a stay-at-home dad and having the kids there and working, one of the things that I might struggle with at times is the idea that, are the kids, it's not always about their impression, but the impressions matter. Are they seeing me and thinking he's ignoring us, he's neglecting us, though they might not put it in those words? Is that sort of the impression and the feeling they're getting? I don't want them to walk away with that, even if it's not accurate, even if it's not, there's a balance, especially with young children, with the rational and the emotional. They're far less rational, far more emotional. And we have to communicate with people, where they're at. And with kids, that is simply more emotional. And so I don't want them to walk away with that. What I hope that they see most of the time, and I think this is one of the great potentials about home businesses, is that they see the labor. They see that effort, because so many kids, mom goes off to work or dad goes off to work, or they both go off to work, and they don't see what work is. They'll see the work that went into preparing a meal, and that's good for what it is. They'll see the work that goes into cleaning and maintaining a house. That's good for what it is. But they don't see all the many, many hours that have to go in to other work, even if it's just for a paycheck, if you want to put it that way, because that paycheck is going to feed them. It's going to buy the materials to fix the house. Mm-hmm. That is very much lost in a more modern society where parents are gone all the time, or the kids are gone all the time. And so having that home business, even if it's just a very minor side hustle, that I think has tremendous potential, so much value for the children to see that. And they can get involved in it too. And that for myself, my dad did construction when I was growing up. So that wasn't in home, but I went to the job site. My brothers, we worked with him. And if you can do that with your kids too, great. But if you can't, having a home business, no matter how small, for them to see that labor, to see the work that goes into it, I think it's tremendously important.
Mm-hmm. Even if it's something as, I don't want to say simple or basic, because it's definitely its own fair share of work. We live in the country, so we were fortunate enough when we moved from Kitchener, Ontario, to move into a smaller home. Well, not a smaller home, but a smaller town where both our families, my family, my mom and dad both grew up, and my husband's family lives now. But we were able to finally build the garden of our, I don't want to say dreams, because it's so much work. Because we felt it was important that we had that example for our kids to see what it was like to grow your own food and actually work. Yeah. And I haven't done that much because I was pregnant, had a baby, kind of busy. But for Evie to be able to go outside and watch my husband and my father-in-law work on the garden, so we could go from backyard to plate, they see that. And I really hope they see such an importance to that. My mom and dad and my husband's dad all grew up on farms. So dads and moms were all basically at home. That was where they worked. And a lot of our generation doesn't really see that often anymore. It's become so normal for parents to either not be home or only one be home, which is fine. But there is something to be said about that traditional lifestyle that I think we're all kind of missing.
Yeah, it's true. I think that home garden thing is excellent too. I've been wishing for years to do even a very small, even if it was just tomatoes. I mean, I've got nothing at the moment, and it's been bothering me for a long time. For them to witness, for kids to witness, just a brief tangent here. I just had this conversation with my two oldest, where I talked to them. They had both lied, and it was very disappointing.
Yeah.
And I had this long conversation with them about it. And in that conversation, one of the things that I wanted to get to and highlighted for them was that the severity of the punishment that their mom and I handed down was for their good. And it was because, what's the reason for our existence? To know and love God, right? Mm-hmm. Be with him forever in the next. And so that means that my job as your parent is to work to make you a person who loves God and will be with him in the next life. That aim, that reason for my existence, I work for that that's my job with mom, is to help her become that. And our job together is to make the children become like that. And so having these examples for the children, they need to be around it. You know, that's where they soak it up. They soak it up by what they witness. And so just something like the tomato garden, you know, to see the work that goes into that, and to realize, you know, food doesn't magically appear at the grocery store to be purchased. There's labor behind all of that too. And in my mind's just sort of reeling. There's so many layers to it. Just understanding what so many people often miss, like the dignity in labor is, you know, we often don't value those people who are on farms, massive farms, picking fruit and vegetables for us, and understand that all this labor has dignity. There's so much that we have to, I don't know,
reclaim.
Fight against yeah, that's a good word for it. And people are, like you said, our modern society, we've become very unacquainted with so much of life. It's sort of behind a curtain. You know, what goes on a farm behind a curtain, all that work, and so much presented to our kids that, how do I put it? It's not bad. It's just, you know, I had in mind. Well, it's, you know, those ideas like, oh, you need to graduate high school and go to college. And well, no, I mean, you need to continue your education. You need to always, when you're 50, you should be continuing your education. But but whether college or a trade, there's again that value in labor, and that's where I love that prayer that I can't read to you right now. One from the prayer to St. Joseph, is that it's such a reminder when I pray it. It properly orients me towards, you know, that this is life. For now, before we pass, life is labor. That isn't a bad thing. That's just the nature of it. And if it's ordered towards the right end, it's glorifying to God. It's good. We should love that and be thankful for the labor.
So there is a desire for us to kind of return to that sense of community. And I think Peter's Square and what you're doing and talking about really reflects that. You know, we want to have kids able to see work. We want vendors and makers to be able to do work that they feel is good work. And at the end of the day, they can let out that sigh of relief and feel like they've done something good in addition to their side hustle or their job or whatnot. My family is kind of going through a period where my husband works from home 2 days of the week, and he drives in to where he had been working before we moved. He drives in an hour and a half, roughly, you know, there, and an hour and a half back. And our daughter, who's 4, is just starting to realize that, you know, daddy is out of the house more often or for longer periods of time on certain days of the week. And it's amazing how they pick up on that. And I think it is something that people are starting to notice too, that the kids notice that. And it's important for them to see what we do, see how we work and whatnot.
Very much.
Do you feel that there is a difference between the Catholic marketplaces between Canada and the US by any chance? It's kind of a random question, but I do think that there's a difference even in terms of, you know, how the church functions in both and the Catholic population in both. Nobody really cares about Canada.
I don't think I'm familiar enough to really know. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always wondered, because most of the purchases that come into me are all in the U.S., which has made being a Catholic vendor a little bit more challenging, because there is additional costs with shipping and whatnot.
Yeah,
you know, because you know, when you have like a $5 item, and it's like, well, you're gonna have to pay like $8 to get it there. I hope I'm still worth it.
That's a challenge. There's only so many international vendors on Peter's Square right now, and there's so many challenges that come up for them, and it's difficult for me to prioritize what I do, because I value them. Some are more challenging than others. For example, there's a vendor who makes candles, beeswax candles, and he is in the Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's got a pretty active store, and but because he's in Ukraine, he can't connect to Stripe. Stripe doesn't operate in his country. So I did make some special accommodations for him. There's all sorts of weird things that come up. Fortunately for him, he can mark up his candles because of where he lives, so he's still making a decent amount because of exchange rates and stuff. So it's good for him, despite shipping.
That would be interesting to sell products overseas, or to be a vendor even there. I'm going to be doing an interview, hopefully within the next month, for another artist that I want to say she's American, but I'm not certain. Don't quote me on that. But she lives in Poland. She says she's not Polish, but she lives in Poland. And I'd be interested to see how, as a business person that makes Catholic artwork, runs it in Poland, which has an incredibly high population of Catholics, compared to even the US or Canada. Yeah, it's all things that I never really considered when I started businesses, of how being a Catholic really does impact your business, how you run it, and how it functions and whatnot. One more question here before we wrap things up is, where do you want to go with Peter Square, and what do you hope will come of it within the next, let's say 10 years?
Short timeline there. Well,
there's no right or wrong answer.
yeah. I feel like my attention has been so divided, not by family, but by legal affairs and whatnot over the past few years, that I wasn't giving as much attention to development and promotion for Peter Square as I wanted to. And so right now, answering the question, I think, I wish I had a more certain, well thought out vision for the next 10 years. But what I know with certainty is that I want to see it grow. That's really a given, but I want to see it grow in terms of the number of vendors and the number of customers, but I want to see the community grow too.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that some of the stuff that I've got planned for this coming year, these coming months, will really provide a good footing for that, to build upon what we already have with the community and make it even better, so that people can come together more easily in the community that we have to find help and assistance and encouragement. Facebook groups are really, like, the only benefit there is that Facebook is ubiquitous, that everyone sort of has a place there already, but it isn't the most conducive to a lot of conversations that I think people want to have. So I'm hoping to see that change. And there's technical things that I don't think everyone wants to hear about. That's where my mind goes to. But I want to see not just 10 years from now, but just a few years from now. I think Peter Square can and should be a pretty household name among Catholics. I've got no problem with people, certainly no problem with people buying from large Catholic stores for various items. And those are again very often run by good Catholic people.
Yep.
Laboring to get, but I feel there's still so much out there, and so many Catholic vendors who still are just discovering Peter Square. It's every week. There's people who just discovering this. I'm so happy I discovered this, and I want those discoveries to stop because I want them to have already happened. You know,
right.
That's where I'd like to see us in a few years, and 10 years from now, just a smooth running machine.
Mm-hmm. There is a lot of help in the in the Peter Square community. I wish I was a bit more active in it, but family first, always.
Yeah.
Everybody, remember that, family first. But a lot of people have found a lot of help and support within the vendor community. There are a lot of people that already had pre-existing stores and pre-existing shops and whatnot, mm-hmm. That did join into Peter Square, which was it's just so cool because I didn't know about a lot of those types of vendors or existed or services that people provided or whatnot. So it's been a really great place to just connect with other people that are also in the same place as you, that are, just starting out. And then those that have been around for a little while longer are also able to support you and give you advice and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've actually, I've made friends mm-hmm. via Peter Square, and it's very valuable. There's a shout out of sorts, Catholic T-shirt club.
I love Catholic T-shirts.
The guy who's at the head of that, Andy, he started a shop on Peter Square, and I discovered that it was a T-shirt business. It wasn't a T-shirt club, and I discovered that he was starting that T-shirt club. And when I discovered that, I checked them out and I said, I think I can help you. And I ended up building their site and doing their whole back end and stuff. And great guy, is now I think 4 kids maybe.
Yeah, something like that.
So that was nice. One of the vendors that I recruited early on was Ellison Kenyon, who mm-hmm. makes rosaries.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. And via her, she roped in a guy by the name of Nick Job, who runs Our Lady's Armory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he and his wife, a few years ago moved to Cincinnati, and so they're friends now. And it's, the Catholic community in North America, is in a sense kind of, I don't want to say small. It's sort of condensed.
Yeah.
I think there's just so many connections. And as one great thing about the internet, when I moved to Cincinnati, I was somewhat isolated because it was a new city, but also as a convert, I knew very few Catholics. Mm-hmm. And the ones that I knew I had left because I moved from where I converted and came to Cincinnati. And, that online community of Catholics that I have, tremendous help to me. Just people that I know I can turn to for prayer and support, and who care about their faith, and they're just their witness. They don't even know. I think half the time, even though I tell them, they don't know what it has meant to me over the years to have their friendship. And I've seen similar. I'm on the outside, so I don't know the details. I've seen similar connections happen via Peter Square. People who seem to connect just there to begin with, and then that relationship flourishes and they do more together. I know Nick Job has met people and stayed at their homes, and it's just that kind of community that spans all this space, mm-hmm. Is so beautiful to me. There are a lot of people, a lot of good Catholic people in North America and the world, just here who, they want to be supportive. They want to be in those relationships, and it's connecting on some common ground to begin with. Mm-hmm. That is the jumping off point for those relationships. And so it's been really cool to watch Peter Square be that jumping off point for something that was never my intention,
And that's what we're all about on this in this particular podcast is being buddies, being friends, supporting each other through this. I don't want to say this journey, but it's kind of a journey.
Yeah.
This adventure that we call life. We want to encourage each other in our relationship with Jesus. We want to be friends for each other that we want to be able to see each other in heaven. That is the goal of a true friendship. Chris, yes. Julie, Mike, and myself, the other three minus myself, they've been friends for a really long time. And then Mike forced me in there when we started dating. But we have a history, and we've grown and we've changed. We've gone through hardships together. We've had good times and hard times, and it's all about in being that community. We need it, and we need it so desperately as Catholics. And so often, a lot of us find things to be a little bit more isolated. But then once you know where to go and where to find those communities, it's life-changing, Yeah. And you're right. The Catholic community, in a sense, can be condensed if you know where to find it. It's amazing when you friend a Catholic on Facebook and it's like, hey, wait a second. They know this person and this person and this person and this person? This is just phenomenal. Like even in one of my mom groups, it's just like, oh, hey, this person knows this person who we also know over here. Hey, didn't we interview that person a couple weeks ago? Chris knew Billy G from OK Catholics because of Franciscan. And several years ago, I had sent him a message without really knowing this. And, I had been like, hey, if you ever need some illustrations, let me know. I didn't know he was like a way better illustrator than I was because I was kind of a noob. So, sorry. But then he messaged me like 6 years later on that same chat, and he was like, wait a second, that was you. And it's just so great. It's just so great when you find that community and you kind of nestle yourself in there, and it's like, okay, guys, we're in it for the long haul.
Yeah. It is a really wonderful thing, and we all make friends in a variety of places and for a variety of reasons to find those connections. But it's those ones that we have that are more rooted, right? When you have people rooted in their faith, and that's how they're coming together. They already have such a foundation. There's a foundation for their friendship because of their faith, and it's a strong one.
It's built on the same thing, the same person.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I've just my own experience with that is couldn't have meant more these past years, and it's a really, really beautiful thing. Thank God for it every day.
I encourage you to join the Facebook group that we have. It's called Be the Casserole. It's about being that community. Seriously, it exists. You should join it.
It exists. I said the name and I thought maybe after saying the name you weren't sure if it really existed.
No, it exists. It's kind of it's an homage to a past episode, but it is all about building that community. Because we need it as Catholics. We can't forget it. It's so fundamentally important to who we are. Like, there are hermits that go off and do their life of prayer, which is beneficial and fruitful and amazing for the church. But especially as lay people, we need our community. And we need to be active in those communities. If somebody hasn't started it, then here's your sign. Do something about it. Be the one to start up the coffee Sunday. Be the one to, help the businessmen get things organized. Help the mom who just had a new baby. And help support Joe down the street that has his home business. There's something really, really important and great about doing those things that will aid in our community as Catholics.
Yeah.
And also bring people in.
Yeah, I do believe that. There's, I always think of that, I want to say it's in John, Gospel of John. Christ says, they'll know that you're mine by your love for each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's the visible sign that the outsiders recognize.
Mm-hmm.
That love for each other. We have to live that. It's got to be tangible. It's got to be visible. And you definitely supporting each other in our labors, in our endeavors, is a very, very good way to do that.
Yep. Well, David, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. It's been truly a pleasure.
Thank you. It has been for me too.
So where can people find Peter Square?
petersquare.com.
Perfect. And you guys there's a Facebook page as well?
Yeah, there's a Facebook page, Instagram account as well. You should pretty easily find those both. The Instagram handle is petersquare.com. So the website minus the period. And yeah, we will, I've recruited Nick Job, and we will be ramping up our social media presence in these coming months. And we've got a lot of good stuff planned.
Amazing. All right. Thank you again, and check us out on the next episode.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast. We hope you will consider being a buddy and supporting Catholic businesses, especially this Advent and Christmas season. Are you a creator or crafter? Why not take a visit to Peter Square at petersquare.com and consider partnering with them? Once there, you'll find amazing support and a fun Catholic community filled with many others that are on a similar business journey, including Brooke herself. You can find her at Visual Litany. Friends, we would love to connect with you. Would you maybe throw us a message on Facebook or DM on Instagram at Theology of the Buddy and let us know you're out there and enjoying the podcast? You can also find us on Twitter at TradFriends or email us at theologyofthebuddy@gmail.com. If you like what you heard today, please consider subscribing to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you listen to awesome podcasts. Would you also please consider rating and reviewing us on iTunes? We'd greatly appreciate it, as it helps us to get noticed within the larger podcast community. Next week, Mike, Brooke, and I will be discussing the popular song, Mary, Did You Know? And taking a look at the dangers of speculative theology. Make sure you're subscribed so you can listen as soon as it's out. We'll save you a seat at the table. New episodes are released every Wednesday. So until then, stay tready.